Good morning, my lovely little ghosts, and welcome to the Dark Orchard. I'm Mara, and this is a Chucky video. As I said in my intro, this is a Chucky video. More specifically, I'm going to be talking about Season 1 of Chucky, because we get Chucky Season 2. If you have not seen the Chucky series, I suggest you watch it. So if you have the Peacock subscription, or I believe you can even watch it with commercials on Peacock, definitely catch up with Season 1 of Chucky before the second season comes out. And this entire video is me basically just talking about what happened in Season 1. Season 1 has been out a year. So if you haven't seen Season 1 of Chucky, go watch all the movies first. Like, all the movies, every single one. Don't skip Seed of Chucky. And then come back to this video after you've seen the series as well. But unless you don't care about spoilers, in which case this will be a spoiler-filled video. Well, I'll try my best not to do too much, but I'm going to talk about the series and what I liked about the series, because we're coming up on Season 2 and it's been a year, so I think it's finally time for me to sit down and talk about it, especially because Chucky is one of my favorite series in general. The whole Child's Play / Chucky series is just top favorites, mostly because of the lore involved. I'm really excited to finally talk about the series because the series is just amazing. Because in my opinion, right off the bat, I'm going to tell you, I think the series is amazing. Don Mancini is a genius, and I will swear by that. You can't convince me otherwise. A genius. So on the subject of Don Mancini being an absolute genius, the intros to Chucky the series are phenomenal. Each one kind of corresponds with what's going to happen in the episode. And each title sequence spells out Chucky with certain things. Gorgeous. Love that. That had me hooked from the very start. It's best to rewatch all of the films and then watch the series, because there's so many little teasers and Easter eggs and nuances that you would not notice if you had not recently watched all the Chucky films. And there's a lot of Halloween and Michael Myers references, either with the way that things are filmed or specific references that only us hardcore horror fans would notice unless you'd recently watched them. But the Chucky series actually follows a high school student named Jake Wheeler. Right off the bat, we see that Jake is one of the weirdos, per se. He is an artist, and he creates sculptures out of dolls, and he's bullied at school, like the classic main character syndrome kind of character. And you can tell right away that we're going to follow him through a pretty intense journey. Because he makes things out of dolls, he happens upon an old Chucky doll, an old good guy doll. He barters at a yard sale and ends up with Chucky. We later find out that he was planted there on purpose by Tiffany to cause a little chaos. And Chucky actually had a legit reason for this happening, which was the goal of the whole Season 1. Season 1, in a nutshell, was a build-up for Chucky's master plan. I'm not sure if we get a subtitle card that tells us that we're in Hackensack to start with, but once we hear the voice of Devin Evans and his serial killer podcast, we learn that the story takes place in Hackensack, which, if you're up to date on your Chucky lore, you know that's where Charles Lee Ray was from, and that's where Charles Lee Ray was buried. So we are in the epicenter of Chucky for this series. Jake and Devin are two of our main characters. Everyone in the series is basically a main character, though, because they all get pretty equal screen time, and you pretty much are involved with all the characters throughout everything. But Devin has a podcast called Hack and Slash. Cute pun, again. Genius Don Mancini. Like, he does a true crime podcast, and one of the crimes that he discusses is the crime of Charles Lee Ray. So, again, that bubble, that Chucky bubble. We get introduced to Jake's family pretty early on. He has an aunt, a cousin, and a twin uncle and dad. And the twin uncle and dad are played by Devon Sawa. I'll be honest, I was skeptical about watching the Chucky series. As much as I love Chucky, I didn't know where they were going to go with it. But then when I saw that Devon Sawa had been cast in Chucky, I gave it a try, and I'm glad I did. Like, I can't imagine not having watched this series now that I've watched it. I've actually rewatched it a couple of times since the initial watch. I love Devon Sawa, in case you didn't know. I'm constantly talking about Devon Sawa, but he does such a fantastic job playing these two polar opposite characters that we learn aren't really that different, but at the beginning they seem very different. One's an abusive alcoholic dad, and one is a go-getter former athlete dad, and they both have these like idealizations in their minds about what their sons should be. It's one of those that even if they were played by different characters, you could see the resemblance. You could tell that they were related because the characters are so fleshed out that you can see, okay, well, these are some similarities and these are some things that don't really, these are some things that happened later on in life, but these things are like set in stone. They both have these traits. And I'm extremely happy to know that they have brought Devon Sawa back for season 2. But we'll talk about the trailer after I talk about season 1. So it was amazing seeing Devon Sawa play twins. 2 totally different characters. Amazing to see his range. Always thrilled. Love anything he's in. Love to see him act. So it was great seeing him act as 2 different people. But let's talk about other characters. Jake's cousin's name is Junior. And then Junior's girlfriend at the time of them being introduced is Lexi. Lexi is our Cordelia, our Cheryl, our person that she's the mean girl in school. And she's definitely mean to Jake. And something kind of interesting about this Chucky series is that Chucky kind of, at the beginning, clings on to Jake and you feel like he almost wants to protect him. Later on we find out that's not the case, but at the beginning it seems like he has a weird agenda, like a not so Chucky agenda, and you could credit that to the Glenda situation where maybe he actually has some fatherly instincts for once, but is Charles Lee Ray, so no. But at the beginning you kind of think it, because he's taking up for Jake. The one person that he wants to kill more than anybody is Lexi, because she makes fun of Jake. And this is where we get into some spoiler territory, because I'm going to talk a little bit more about what happens later on in the season. I'm going to talk about things that happen with Lexi and Jake's dad, and I will eventually most likely blurt out a big time spoiler. So from this moment on, definitely expect spoilers for season 1. So because Chucky has this yearning to make things right for Jake, he goes after Lexi. And the one thing that makes him really snap is that after Jake's dad dies by electrocution because of Chucky, Lexi dresses up like his dad for Halloween and acts out like she's being electrocuted. And it really upsets Jake, obviously, because your cousin's girlfriend is dressed like your dead dad and reenacting the way he died. Like, that's just way too far. So this really irks Chucky enough that she moves her way all the way up to number 1 on his list. And he spends a good portion of the season trying to kill her in different ways. Near the beginning of the season, we see Jake enter a talent show, and he uses Chucky as a ventriloquist dummy, but of course Chucky uses his own voice and says Chucky things. During that talent show, Lexi's little sister falls in love with Chucky. Thinks that the good guy doll is absolutely adorable. Lexi's little sister is autistic, I love, love, love that they had a character that's on the spectrum without constantly saying something about them being on the spectrum. Like, we never hear that Lexi's sister is autistic. It's just part of who she is, because it's just part of who people are. She can perfectly draw Chucky and remember the things that he has said. Because this is like a breakthrough with her and a breakthrough in communication, they figure out a way to get the Chucky doll for the little girl. So when Caroline gains possession of the Chucky doll, then Chucky has easy access to Lexi. One of their friends is actually caught in the crossfire of him trying to kill her, and that same night, the house burns down and Chucky gets deformed because, as we know, fire is one of Chucky's weaknesses. So after that, Caroline doesn't want anything to do with that Chucky. So at the same time, we learn that Jake has a crush on Devin. And to recap, Devin is the one that has the horror podcast. And they get closer as the Chucky situation progresses. And I really like that eventually Devin and Lexi find out about Chucky, and then they join forces with Jake. And we get to see the Jake and Devin relationship kind of grow through that trauma. And I'm really excited for that to come back in season 2. Before we get to season 2, let me talk just a tiny bit more about season 1. One of my favorite Chucky movies is Cult of Chucky. The one where Nika Pierce is in the mental hospital. That's one of my favorite Chucky movies ever. And Cult of Chucky pretty much bleeds right into the Chucky series, in the fact that we get a lot of the legacy characters back. We of course have Brad Dourif, who voices Chucky, but we also get Nika, because at the end of Cult of Chucky, Nika was possessed by Charles Lee Ray. So we also get Fiona Dourif back on cast. Of course, the fantastic Queen Jennifer Tilly reprises her role as Tiffany Valentine. And then we also get Alex Vincent, who actually played the little boy in the first Child's Play movie. He played Andy, and he continues to play Andy in the new series. And if you remember, the last time we saw Andy, he was locked in the mental hospital by Chucky. And if I'm not mistaken, the series takes place a couple of weeks after he was locked in the institute. So not a lot of time has passed between Cult of Chucky and present day, and what we would consider the present day with Jake and all of them. I loved the way that they did flashback episodes for this series, because like I mentioned, we had Brad and Fiona. They had Fiona dress like a young Charles Lee Ray and act out the part, while Brad voiced the part. And it was just perfect. And then, of course, they had an actress come in to play Tiffany and had Jennifer Tilly voice her. Some people thought it was odd to see that, but it's really no different than seeing them voice the dolls than it is to voice people. So I don't see where the disconnect is there. I thought it was really cool. And it was really fun seeing all of those, like, flashbacks to when Chucky and Tiffany first met, and Chucky and Tiffany getting their first car. All the cute yet somewhat gruesome, because it's Chucky and Tiffany, things that the series could offer now that it's a series and can flesh out some of those details. And we even find out that Tiffany was the one responsible for Charles Lee Ray getting caught in the first Child's Play movie. So, lots of loose ends being tied, because we have a series where we can actually emphasize some parts that weren't exactly filled out before. There's only one part of the new series that I didn't enjoy, and we just have to deal with it because it's done. If you know, you know, but it's one of the big shockers at the end of season 1, and I hated it. I just hated it because Nika is one of my favorite characters. One thing that I was kind of surprised about was Miss Fairchild. I really thought that she would be someone we knew from before, but then turns out she's not. But it does look like she's coming back for season 2, at least for a little bit, so there's still room for something to happen with her. Okay, so now I'm going to talk about the trailer for season 2. So with the trailer for season 2, when the trailer starts off, we get kind of reacquainted with the main kids that are still there.
What ever happened to Chucky?
Chief, Where the hell are you? You're the only one I can talk to about what really happened.
It's been a really tough year.
We also see a Chucky doll get delivered to a slightly older Caroline who looks immediately disturbed when she opens the door. And then we see them transfer to what looks like maybe a boarding school or something.
You will be placed in a facility with other violent juvenile offenders.
They are all orphans at this point, and none other but Devon Sawa is working at this facility, as what they say is a totally different, unrelated character.
You've suffered great pain in your young life.
And that just makes me happy. It gives me much joy to see Devon Sawa back on Chucky. Legit, he could play a new character each season, and I'd be perfectly fine with that. It'd be funny. It'd be like a thing. It could be a thing, and I'd be fine with it being a thing. Chucky's good with having things, so this could just be another thing. But on the flip side of all that, we do get to see a lot with the kids, but then later on in the trailer, we get to see Tiffany, and we also see Nika very mad and saying Tiffany needs to get what's coming to her. I'm assuming that is Charles Lee Ray talking and not Nika, but Nika would most likely say the same thing. And then the one thing that's going to make everyone happy, we get a shot of Glenn and Glenda.
Mom's a murderer. Mom's a lesbian?
We get a cute little image of Mama Tiffany welcoming Glenn and Glenda, and they're dressed so cute.
Glenn, Glenda, come to Mama.
And I'm just really excited for that part. Lachlan Watson will be playing both Glenn and Glenda, but if you remember, Lachlan Watson is the person that played Theo on Sabrina. I'm really excited to see them in this role on Chucky. And I'm just overall just excited. Excited is the word here. We're going to put a pin in that and leave it there because that's where it belongs. I'm so super excited for this. I loved season 1. Season 1 was just the perfect amount of Chucky camp, and I cannot wait for it to continue in season 2. I love that there's more range, there's more time to work with, and there's more room for Don Mancini to just create and make more of the Chucky universe. I'm sure season 2 is going to be just as good as season 1. So that is my recap of season 1, my thoughts, and then my thoughts on the season 2 trailer. Season 2 comes out, so if you are planning on catching up, now's the time to do it. So for the comments down below, tell me what you thought of season 1 of Chucky. And if you don't talk to me about that, tell me who your favorite character is from the Child's Play series. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope you come around again soon. Say bye.